All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
1-800-610-7035, worldwide toll-free. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV, and our website, xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour is a gentleman who I've heard so many good things about. Great having him on the show. His name is Dr. Peter Andrew Sacco, and we're talking about a new study that actually shows anger is the most contagious emotion online. Listen to this, Exonation. A 6-month study from China that analyzed more than 70 million tweets found rage is the emotion most likely to spread throughout social media. This is a quote. Rage dominates all platforms and includes the Facebook Rager, the angry Twitter, and the online dating Avenger, all of which are bizarre forms of rage from individuals with an axe to grind, says my guest this hour, Dr. Peter Andrew Sacco. He's a psychology professor here in Canada and formerly in the United States, and author of Technological Rage, his website, www.petersacco.com. That's PeterSacco.com. And Dr. Peter Sacco, welcome to the X Zone. Great talking to you after all these years.
Absolutely, Rob. Thanks for having me on, and all the listeners out there, thanks for listening to me today. I hope you're all doing well.
Why do people express anger on the social media when once it's out there, you can't take it back?
You know what, Rob? That's a great question, and I think it involves two different distinct things. Mm-hmm. First of all, I think it's instant gratification. When it comes to instant gratification, a lot of it is tied to our emotions, where we just want things immediately. And unfortunately, somewhere down the road, we evolved into thinking, hey, we can just express ourselves, even if it's the bad emotion, now. And then the second component that kind of ties into it is the invisibility factor. Hey, Rob, you can't see me. Ha, ha, ha. I'm hiding behind a screen. So guess what? I'm going to give it to you because you can't slap me.
It seems that society has turned into a society that demands instant information, instant results, and instant everything. Where do we stop it? How do we turn things around? Or is it too late for any of that?
You know what? That's a really, really, really cool question, and I think it's, you know what they say, sometimes when the horse has left the barn and then got out of the yard, it's gone. Sometimes you can't reel her back in. Well, I think with this one here, Rob, I think it ties into, how should we say, this sense of entitlement. Too many people are being brought up or misled or just really believing, hey, I'm entitled to whatever it is I want, whatever it is I want to express. And, you know, I'm going to get it. You know, I don't care who I've got to walk over, who gets hurt along the way, as long as I get what I want. But then the problem is with entitlement, Rob, is that a lot of people then look back and say, oh, my God, now I feel bad about this. Now the guilt, shame, or remorse fits in, you know. But it's after the fact. It's like you say, once you tweet something out there, Facebook out there, it's out there.
I think one thing that comes to mind is in the news yesterday and today is that the daughter of the airline pilot of Flight 370 is defending her father online from British tabloid newspapers. And we've seen so many cases of bullying that are now coming to light using the social networks. How do we turn things around when it comes to kids using or abusing the social network to, go after other kids, electronic bullying?
That's a really insightful, deep question because it involves a lot, Rob, and I think it comes into accountability. Mm-hmm. And this is where I think parents have to start stepping up. A lot of parents rely too much on teachers during the day. Teach my kids what to do, what's right and what's wrong. where a lot of the values need to be instilled in the home. And in fact, when I wrote this book, Technological Rich, which by the way is free on my website, completely free, and Debbie Williams was helping me put this together, I had actually sat on a radio forum in an afternoon that discussed internet bullying and online bullying, where, Rob, it got so bad that some teenagers had committed suicide because of it. And that's why we decided to put this out there for free and to get people aware of this, that there has to be, how should you put, courtesies and some sort of, protocol in place for just communicating online. And I think when it comes back to kids and bullying, the bottom line is kids have to be taught that that's another human being on the other side of that screen, and that they have feelings too. So Rob, I guess to answer your questions, in order to combat this, we got to reinstill the idea of empathy, putting ourselves in other people's feelings.
Exonation, Dr. Peter Sacco is my guest. He is a former adjunct psychology professor at the Niagara University in Lewiston, New York. He's the creator and instructor of the criminal psychology program at Niagara College, Canada. He is also the instructor at McMaster University in Canada in the addiction studies program and police foundation study. In addition to 700 articles published in newspapers and magazines and journals of repute, Professor Sacco has to his credits many books, including What's Your Anger Type?, Penis Envy, and Why Women Want What They Can't Have. Dr. Peter Sacco appears regularly on television and radio shows in both Canada and the United States, and is also the host of a... With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Named one of the world's greatest psychics, Elizabeth Joyce is now giving readings worldwide via Skype. Elizabeth Joyce is recognized for her clairvoyant ability to help find missing persons, her analysis of dreams, past life regression work, mediumship, and her accurate predictions. Elizabeth has been a frequent guest on the X-Zone radio show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, now for several years. For an appointment with Elizabeth Joyce, call 201-934-8986 or Skype at elizabeth.joyce. And for more information, you can always visit Elizabeth Joyce online at www.new-visions.com.
Do you have a dis-ease that you would like to alleviate through a natural means? Have you been contacted by angels, ghosts, or even extraterrestrials and want to validate these experiences? Or would you simply like to speak with someone who can help you find your life's purpose? I'm Dr. Joseph Mara, and I'm offering my services free of charge for first-time clients contacting me during the month of April. These free consultations include angel card readings, guided meditations, life coaching, and energy healing. If you have always wanted to explore these types of experiences but were skeptical or simply could not afford them, then take advantage of this free special offer. Contact me through my website, aguidinglight, spelled LITE.com, to schedule your consultation today. Until then, I offer you love, light, and laughter.
It's a whole new way of life. Well, let's hear it.
www.petersacco.com is Dr. Sacco's website. We're talking about anger. Well, to start with, anger on the internet. We've all heard about the electronic bullying. We've heard about kids actually committing suicide because they're being bullied, they're being mal-tweeted, they're being abused on Facebook. I don't know. It's pretty hard to understand why people are so involved with this technology of today. You know, Peter, you go to restaurants and you don't see families talking to each other. You see families sitting there eating their food, tweeting, and you know, using their iPhone to do other things. What's going to happen in the future to this society of ours? How is it, you know, like, what's going on? Everybody has these electronic gadgets. Are we going to be turned into demi-robots?
That's a good question, Rob. You know what? A good friend of mine, he brought this up because he's a conspiracy theorist, and he was throwing this out there. He goes, what happens, Pete, if this comet comes too close to the Earth, hits the Earth or something? We have this meteor shower that wipes out all frequencies, all our satellites. Yep. We have no more cell phones or internet. You know what, Rob? I think there'd be a lot of people drinking or going ballistic.
Yeah, I agree.
Because you're right. We become, I'm not going to not say me, people in general have become so codependent, and I use that term loosely, codependent on their cell phones, where they cannot not put it down for longer than an hour. And it's funny because I talked about it in the book, where in the day, Rob, people couldn't wait. You know, they'd see a yellow light, and they'd be flying through it at a stoplight. It's like, man, I ain't stopping for that. Now people embrace the yellow light so they can check their cell phones.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, the way the kids abbreviate everything, like LOL, OMG, how are they going to carry any conversation in the future? I don't understand it, Peter. It just boggles my mind. You walk down any street and you've got more people looking down at their handheld devices than you have looking at the street and what's going on around them.
You know what, Rob? It's funny. I'm glad you bring that up. It's like, remember the old movie, The Stepford Wives?
Oh, my gosh.
The robots. Well, this is what kids are looking like. People are looking like, the teenager group and that. And it's funny. I watched this where somebody walks with their cell phone texting, and I've watched, Rob, this winter, because we've had it brutal here in Niagara Falls, ice on the ground. Yeah. I've watched people do face plants because they're texting. And it absolutely, you know, how far does it go besides the fact that people are becoming less emotive in their ability to do face-to-face communication and understand. Everybody's shortcutting their perceptions to communication, and it's becoming cold, a cold, distant society in that sense, and that's one of the greatest concerns, not to mention, you know, carpal tunnel syndrome and other things that are coming from this.
Are we looking at and seeing more anger and hostility being brought out in people because they have the ability to hide behind the anonymity of the internet and the handheld device?
I think so. You know, that seems to be the nature. When we were doing our interviews with people, we just found, you know, we found a couple of things. First of all, when it comes to communication, words don't mean a thing. People give the words meaning. And the problem is with it, there's so many misperceptions and miscommunications in texting, and because you said, you know, with the icons and the short forms, that people are getting the wrong message, and they're thinking, oh my God, how dare they say that to me, or what are they implying? And then the second part of it is, Rob, it's a soap opera. You're sending one message after another, which could be communicated in 2 minutes or less, and this is drawing out over an hour. People are getting frustrated. So what you're getting are people are not only addicted to cell phones and texting, but it becomes an anger component which gets tied into the texting addiction, and so anger becomes habitual and eventually an addiction because you get addicted to that feeling.
I like the old way where if you wanted to communicate with someone, you did it, number one, in person, or number two, you picked up something called the telephone. And you actually spoke to the person. You could hear the the inflection in their voice, and it's a lot easier to understand if a person is being empathic or if they're being sarcastic or mean listening to them than the words of a cold text. And for the life of me, I don't get it.
No, you know, and you're right about that, because when you're texting, you're losing two things. You're losing audio and visual communication. If you and I are talking face-to-face, Rob, we can rely on both, the tone of our voice, the pace, and all that stuff.
And body
as
language.
Well as, absolutely, which is about 70 to 80% of all communication is non-communication, which is body language. So with that said, we're eliminating the audio part with texting. We're eliminating the visual part. So all that leaves is your interpretation of a message, and if you don't know the person very well, especially if they're sarcastic, like I've been known to be, and I'm cracking off a joke, they're taking it seriously, and heaven forbid, and I'm a terrible texter, Rob, sometimes I forget to take the caps lock off on it, so I'm sending you a text, and it's like, Rob, it's like, holy cow, I just sent this up to you, and you're going, yeah, Pete, why are you screaming at me? It's all in capitals, and it's not my intention.
I've done that using Skype with people. You know, I forget to take the capitals off, and they come back with a sarcastic remark. Well, you don't have to get mad about it. Well, I'm not mad about it. I heard this story. One of my friends went on one of these online dating services. Okay, got to start communicating with this young lady. Well, the length of the text that he showed me from this young lady and his replies, you know, like, could have been, it was like a book, for goodness sake. So like, when it comes to dating services, when it comes to all these online chat rooms, are we getting away from the one-to-one? Are we getting away from society? Look, I've even heard of people having sex in virtual reality, and they feel as if they're cheating on their wives. Other people are married to online virtual reality people, and they lead a double life. So are we turning from the world of reality, going to virtual reality and texting to escape the problems that we can't cope with?
Yeah, I think that's about right. It kind of makes sense, because as you bring up dating sites, especially online stuff. What it provides two things. Once again, it provides the invisibility factor, and also it provides a sense of anonymity. So it's like, okay, I can feel you out, or you can feel me out, and if we don't like each other, then we never see each other again. Or and the problem is when we were doing the research on this, a lot of women were more open about talking about their plights on online dating. So, oh my God, Pete, like, this is a train wreck. I keep getting lied to, deceived to. It's because, Rob, you can kind of create any character, any persona you want online, and it's like anime. It's like you get to become this fictional character online, and then when these women were going to meet the person, it's like, oh my God, look nothing like the picture, and they're nothing what I thought. And that's part of it, Rob. You create a fantasy illusion when you're existing or endearing this life of what you want online, because it's not real. It's all cyber.
All right, it may be cyber, Peter, but there must be psychological implications that the person who's indulging into these virtual lives that are basically it's all fictitious. It's not real. So how does this affect them as a human being?
I think a lot of the person that's the deceiver, I think, in playing the games on there, probably to some degree, I would bet the farm on this has a very low self-esteem of themselves. That's number one. And number two, they may have an inferiority complex where in the past they're the ones who were rejected or they've been bullied. And I think the third part of it is, which is really disturbing because some guys actually reported this, is, they say, hey, I go and I use that so I can reject women that way, because it builds me up, so I feel better, so that when I go in the real world, I've got better confidence. So it's terrible that you would treat another human being as a test run or a test subject online, so you can build up your confidence for the real world. And that's not right.
No, it's not. So how do we start changing things? How do we start getting people to actually use etiquette online, or etiquette when they're using the social media, etiquette when they're texting? How do we start that going?
I think the very first thing, Rob, is you've got to look at it is, okay, if I ran into you in a supermarket or if I ran, into into you in a shopping mall, would I ignore you? That's number one. Or number two, would I be rude to you? And you probably wouldn't. You'd smile, and you'd be courteous. And you see, that's how you have to look at that, is you have to take it to the level that the person on the other end is a warm-blooded, living creature, that's somebody's child, or, they're somebody's mother, father, or something like that. And I think when you put yourself into that, you don't treat them as a subjugated object. Rather, you look at them as a real, true human being. You bring them to your level. So it's all about empathy. It's all about putting yourself in their shoes. And it's all about identifying. And that's the key thing, communication, open communication, and asking questions, which, once again, which is a courtesy, is if you don't understand, clarify. Seek clarification by asking a question to see if the message was what it was intended to be.
Are we being totally inundated by the speed at which technology allows us to live our life now? Are we capable of this ongoing speed, the increased information, the abilities that modern technology has given us? Are we there yet, physically and psychologically?
You know what? I would say it's a double-edged sword. I would say yes in some respects, that the generations that are coming up that have had this, like you're in my generation, Rob, we're back. We remember beta, vid,
oh my gosh,
VHS. Yeah, we had rotary phones. So for all these ones that are coming up now, and I see it with my students, oh, heck yeah, they can handle that component. The problem is, though, is they're taking the principles of technology, computer age, and all that kind of stuff, and since they're spending so much time in that domain, Rob, throughout the course of the day, they're applying those same rules and principles into the reality world of dealing with humans, dealing with work, and all that other stuff. And the problem is they're two different universes. They're not the same. The rules of playing each one and existing and enduring and enjoying each world is different. And the problem is you can't do it both ways. So myself, I guess I'd be a dinosaur because I came from the rotary phone generation to dial-up modems, that I can do the communication part really good with human beings in the real world, but when it comes to technology, Rob, I stink at it.
So where should we start? Should we start the education of text etiquette in the schools or at home?
I think it starts kind of, I think at this point here, because the generation introduced the computers within the schools, I think there should be life skill courses that are offered, starting even at the elementary level on how to communicate effectively texting, that it should be its own subject, which is basically, as I would call, computer viral communication. That you learn how to text, how to send email messages, and how to communicate that way, because it is its own subject matter. And it has to start there, because I would say if you take it to the homes, there's a lot of parents, Rob, that are oblivious to all this. They still are not tech savvy.
All right,
so I think if you introduce it in schools, that's a good place.
Stand by, Peter. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exonation, Dr. Peter Andrew Sacco is our very special guest. And we're talking about anger online, amongst other things. His website, an interesting site, www.petersacco.com. We'll be back on the other side of this news break as we continue from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Don't go away. Are you considering calling a psychic to read your situation? Then consider David Champion, a psychic medium for more than 20 years with thousands of readings under his belt. David Champion will make you feel comfortable. He has proven to be honest and accurate. He's a straight shooter. There's no guesswork. What he sees is what you get. While he is a medium, most of the calls focus on relationships, not only love, but work, school, neighbors, and more. Need help with finding a job and preparing for the interview? Are you dealing with people who are obstacles in your path? For more information, go to davidchampion.com, $1.50 per minute paid by credit card with a minimum of 30 minutes. For your reading with David Champion, call 1-877-702-8598. That's 1-877-702-8598. Now you can dial in to listen to the X Zone radio show from anywhere in the world with Rob McConnell 24/7, 365 by dialing 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080. If you have a mobile phone or landline, the X Zone radio show with Rob McConnell is now at your beck and call at 213-401-0080. That's 213-401-0080, 24/7, 365.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Joyce with the X Zone. This week, beginning March 31st through April 6th, we have eclipses, retrogrades, and the Grand Cross energy. That comes on April 28th, which is going to bring activity and attention to your relationships. On the 29th, the solar eclipse in Taurus will bring a focus on your finances. Your patience will be tested throughout the month because 3 planets are retrograde. Your mind will be on several different issues this month as Mercury zips through Pisces, Aries, and finally Taurus. When Mars is in partnership-oriented Libra, you can expect activity in that area of your life. Be sensitive to the needs of people around you. Aim for harmony and equality in all of your alliances, whether they are emotional or professional. There are 2 very strong, challenging aspects in April, on the 20th and the 21st. Actually, this energy will affect you the entire month, beginning today. For many, they bring stress, nervousness, a crisis, suffering, a dilemma, or other problems. Be sure to stay alert. Avoid all high-crime neighborhoods and people who have been abusive to you in the past. Since the Grand Cross triggers, the water signs expect lots of April showers.
There's nothing stopping this one.
If this is true, we should listen and be grateful.
And welcome back to the X Zone. My name is Rob McConnell. My very special guest this hour is Dr. Peter Andrew Sacco. His website is www.petersacco.com. Peter, what's your take on video games? Like you've got all these different games. Some are, you kill a cop, you steal a car, you get points. Another one is you kill members of an opposing force, you get points. Are they safe? Do they teach us the wrong values in life?
I'm kind of on, and I hate to say this because probably I need a proctologist because I'm sitting on the fence on this. But you know what, Rob? I would say probably it depends more on the individual playing the game and their personality. Okay. So, and I did this when I was doing my PhD dissertation, where you look at the individual. If the individual has a disposition towards violence, they're growing up in a dysfunctional, violent atmosphere, and they have a hard time discerning between reality and fantasy, then that's the one that would worry me. Conversely, the person that's growing up in a good environment that understands the difference between right and wrong, and they know that it's a game, they are less likely to be, how should they, influenced. But with that said, the pros, some people would say the pros of playing these games, that it actually improves dexterity, reflexes, and all that stuff. But the flip side of it is, too, it actually promotes laziness in other areas of life if a person's always getting tied up in it. So, you know what, Rob? It can go either way, but it's okay if you're using it for a diversion, for fun, for, just as a plaything. But if you're using it in the terms of reality, then that's when it becomes dangerous.
Yeah, I had this guest on last year, Peter, and she was telling me about the virtual life that she leads that her husband doesn't know about. Like in the world of virtual reality, she's married to another man, and while she's married to this man in virtual reality, she's having sexual encounters with 5 or 6 other guys, and she's buying land, and the guys pay her for doing this, that, and the other thing. And then she closes the computer and goes back to her real husband. And I'm saying something is wrong with this picture.
I would probably concur. First of all, wow.
Yeah.
I think in some ways, you know what, Rob, it's interesting you bring that up because it's the same kind of phenomenon that we experienced 25, 30 years ago when they did studies on viewers of soap operas during the day and also consumers of romance novels. And I'm not trying to be sexist here in any way, shape, or form. Women are the number one consumers of that. And the problem was with that, there was a strong link to codependency where a lot of the women that were caught up in this kind of material viewed themselves as the weaker of the two sexes, of the two genders, and then they believed that there was some knight in shining armor or a person that would kind of dominate over their lives. And that's the problem with that kind of lifestyle getting into it, is it blurs the lines. And especially now with pay equity and equality, women have gotten a lot, most women don't subscribe to that, but unfortunately, those that do, both men and women, to that kind of lifestyle, they're kind of undermining the real world relationships.
Yeah, the soap opera concept came from the marketing that was being viewed by the soap companies who wanted to get their product into more homes, and they realized, hey, wait a minute, our market is watching this show, so why shouldn't we advertise in it? And that's where the concept of the soap opera came from, was Tide, and what was the other major one? I forget, there were two, but Tide certainly was one of them, who became the major sponsor. Procter & Gamble. There you go. So marketing. I guess it all depends on who your market is and what you want to sell.
And what's interesting is that, they market the general rule of thumb, and I think it still exists today, is if you want to market romance, you market it towards the women, because women will subscribe to that more. And if you want to market sex and pornography, you market it to men, because men are more of the visual creatures. That's, basically subscribe to that. And it just proves, in book sales and, video sales.
Speaking about book sales, tell me about your book, Penis Envy. You knew that was coming, Peter. No pun intended.
Yeah. What's interesting, Rob? A lot of people go, "My God, you wrote a book about the penis," and it's interesting in the sense that I'm not the first person to come up with this idea. It was actually the late great Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysis, that actually looked at penis envy in terms of competition, how women felt inferior or painted in inferior positions to men back in the Victorian times. And all the way, if you look up to it all the way up into pay equity and women's liberation, it was still that kind of disjointed separation between men and women in terms of them being treated equally. So myself and my co-authors, we took a different slant on it, because since pay equity's come along, and women are now, and they've always should have been equal with men.
I agree.
On the same playing field in all areas of life. What we found now, Rob, and we did this book as a tribute to Sigmund Freud and psychologists that studied this, was that what was once created for women, the penis envy thing, is now with men. That you have men that are competing with one another, because they're like, oh my God, he just went and got a Mercedes. I've got to go get a better series of a Mercedes. And we got into all of that, just kind of the quirks that men engage in with each other, this one-upmanship, like this, oh my gosh, we both pull up at the stop sign at the same time. I'm going to let you go. No, you go first, because I don't want to be the weaker of the two. So you got two guys sitting at a stop sign forever and a day, not willing to go because they don't want to submit to the other guy.
Oh my goodness. But it's
Isn't it interesting, the world we live in?
Yeah, just to sit back, and you and I both deal in the paranormal. You've got a very successful TV show that I want to talk about in a few seconds. But people talk to me, and I'm sure they talk to you about UFOs, extraterrestrials, reversed engineering, this, that, and the other thing. And I think the world that we live in is proof, well, the way I see it, that extraterrestrials can't be involved, because if they had anything to do with this, they're dumber than we are.
You know what, Rob? They must be just looking, if they were around here watching us, they must be sitting there shaking their head, doing a unibrow, going, are you kidding me? These people are for real?
Exactly. What would any of the major religious leaders like Jesus say if he came back and saw what was going on? And, we're ruining a good thing. Like, I believe the concept of the Garden of Eden was Earth as it was before we screwed it up. And man, we've done a great job of that.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you're right. If Jesus was here and he was texting, I think he would text OMG.
Which brings another question. Who would Jesus text to?
That's a really cool question. It's probably God's like, get me out of here.
All right, we've talked about technological relationships. I want to talk to you, if I could, Peter, about your love for the paranormal. You've got a successful TV show. You talk about hauntings in Niagara, which is, in my opinion, one of the most haunted areas on this entire planet. You've got so much. It's so rich. You're working with a great guy that I have the pleasure of knowing and calling a friend, Jack Custers. Where did your love for the paranormal come from?
You know what? That's really cool, Rob. When I was a kid, I grew up watching The Night Stalker. Remember the Darren McGavin show?
Yeah.
Which would eventually inspire Chris Carter to do the X-Files, which I got to say, I am one of the biggest X-Files fan on the face of this earth. So, you combine the fact that I studied policing and criminal psychology, and then I took a couple paranormal or parapsychology courses, and then basically that was the X-Files. That was Mulder, and then I used to have students call me Mulder. They thought it was actually funny. But I find it fascinating. You know what I think for me, Rob? It's an escape from everyday reality. Yeah. It's the what-ifs, where we sit there back in the day in elementary school and high school, daydreaming. Yep. You'd sit there and daydreaming like, what if this happened? Yeah. What if a spaceship really came to Earth? Yeah. And I think that's what it was. And I used to love the old, Bela Lugosi, Vincent Price movies and all that stuff. Yeah. And that's what got me hooked. Yeah. And I'm a huge Hitchcock fan, Alfred Hitchcock, so that all got me into it.
Now, he was the master. He's the
Absolutely.
master. Yeah. Tell me, Peter, in your opinion, what is the most haunted story in Niagara?
You know what? And it's really cool. You and I were talking about this before I came on. It involves Bob Crawford. It was the 1970 poltergeist case of St. Catharines, Ontario, where for 28 days, an apartment building was either, some people say it was demonically possessed. Others would say it was a poltergeist case because, a child was floating on a bed, floating on a chair. 3 adults were sitting on a couch that was floating. Things were flying off the wall. And we just recreated that whole segment for our first episode of Season 2 in Niagara's Most Haunted, my TV show this year. And I would say that is one of the coolest stories I have ever heard. And then there's some other ones involving phantom stories that I've heard around here. And then it's really kind of cool, Rob. Down in Port Colborne, along Lake Erie, people have reported seeing flying saucers, spaceships. Yep. So that's kind of a new phenomenon that we're kind of looking into going into Season 3. And by the way, we're not Ghostbusters. We were just at the Comic-Con a couple weeks ago in Toronto, and people thought that's what we do. We Ghostbuster, we do, ghost tours and UFO tours. No, we go there and we get the information from the people involved, tell a really cool story, give the scientific explanation of it, and recreate it.
Why do you think there's such an interest in the paranormal, Peter?
You know what, Rob? I think it's twofold. I think besides the easiest one is entertainment factor. I think it's always very entertaining. It takes us from the mundane realities away from that. But I think the second part of it too is I think people want to believe there's something else out there above and beyond us. If you don't believe, you're not a God fan or an Allah fan, you're not from that, then it's like, okay, maybe it's UFO stuff. Let's go with the alien stuff. So you know what it is, Rob? I think some people are so tired of being just human. They want something else. And if it's not the UFOs or God, some people, that's why superhero stuff, Marvel and DC Comics, is so big now, because once again, all this stuff kind of offers people generally a sense of hope, something outside of themselves, of the mundane realities of life.
So are we just looking at a different type of virtual reality when we talk about UFOs, ghost hauntings, Bigfoot? Instead of going into the computer and going virtually online, we actually go to a place and we embellish ourselves into that myth, into that folklore. So as humans, do we need to have fantasy?
You know what? I think so, and I think this kind of comes up as kids. We read fairy tales, bedtime stories, and all that stuff. But it wasn't about red eyes hiding in our closet or underneath our bed, and our parents going, "Okay, good night, hon. Have a good night's sleep."
You want to bet?
Yeah, or your parents putting on The Exorcist before you go to bed. It's like, okay, little Bobby, you go to sleep, watch Linda Blair's head spinning around. But no, I think a lot of it, Rob, is the fact that we just like to be entertained. I think, and this is my claim to it with doing Niagara's Most Haunted. I work with a lot of the mayors in this area and the city councils and a lot of the historical places. Our goal was to provide people with a taste of the rich history of the 200 plus years of history from 1812. And up your neck of the woods too, Rob, in the Hamilton area, there's a lot of beautiful places that people don't know. So rather than virtually staying online, touring these places, go to see them, touch the building. And I think that's what it is. It's sensory perception, meaning take it all in with all of your senses rather than a computer screen.
I think what's wonderful about the work that you do and other credible, and I'm using the word credible here because there's a lot of wackos out there, credible people who produce TV shows, do research and so on, is that you're historians. You're keeping the history alive. You know, I remember going on a ghost walk in Fort George, and the people were so enthused. This is where the little girl was seeing this. There was a light at the end of this tunnel, this, that, and the other thing. And at the end of the tour, I said to the tour guide, I said, well, why is everything being seen here when this fort was rebuilt and the other one was 500 feet over there?
Somebody never told a ghost, which would be, Sarah Ann. I remember the ghost of the girl there. And you know what? I'm glad you bring that up, Rob. I think part of the things, the ghosts that we look for are the stories, the histories. The ghosts, not the actual tangible spiritual ghosts or entities or orbs, but rather the ghosts of generations past that still have a story to tell. They're telling us a story of how we got here today based on their, plights and the endeavors they had to partake in.
You know, all the shows I've done over the years, 22 years doing this show, I still haven't talked to any researcher, any person who's had an experience with spirits or seeing ghosts who have seen a caveman, a dinosaur. It seems that the world of ghosts starts where shortly before the Industrial Revolution. And I wonder why.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah. Peter, stand by.
That is kind of interesting.
Yeah, stand by, Peter. You and I have to take our final commercial break. Exonation Dr. Peter Andrew Sacco is our special guest. And, of course, we'll have Peter back on in the future because it's nice talking to somebody who's grounded. And, Peter, thanks very much for taking time out of your busy day to join us here today. We'll be back on the other side of this commercial break.
Thank you so much, Rob.
My pleasure, sir. www.petersacco.com. My name's Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and we'll be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Rob McConnell here, presenting an overview for Nicholas Paul Jennings, author of a fascinating book, Amen. It presents facts revealed by Egyptologists, facts that enable us to understand why Amen is the beginning of creation of God. It provides recommendations for religious leaders of the major religions to unify their beliefs and teach the Word of God. Love one another. Amen informs people how mankind conceived God. It was the Egyptians that developed the concepts of a soul, a hereafter, and Son of God. And finally, after the worship of many gods, they conceived the belief in one universal God, the maker of all there is. For more information, visit www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Dr. Peter Sacco is our special guest of this hour. We started talking about internet rage, and we've kind of segued to another passion of Dr. Sacco is the paranormal. And first of all, Peter, thanks very much for being on the show. It's a great pleasure talking to you. Congratulations on all your projects. You're making a positive difference. And once again, give my very best to Jack Custer when you see him later on today.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on, Rob. And you gave me an idea. I'm going to write my next book on angry ghosts text. How do you like that?
I love it. I love it. Hey, listen, Peter. We've got about 4 minutes left. I have to ask you, as a psychologist, as a professor, as a doctor, what is your take on psychics? Are they real, or are they all hoopla?
You know what? I used to think they were all kind of out there, some of them, because that was just my conception, because what I saw on TV. Mm-hmm. However, I had a woman that is now no longer with us on this earth that was a former student of mine that absolutely told me, I can read you and all this kind of stuff. And I said, yeah, whatever. And then as soon as she started telling me about my life, literally, Rob, undressing me. And I'm thinking, how the hell could you possibly know all this stuff? And then when I later would find out she was involved in major police investigations, then I believed.
Wow.
So absolutely, I do. And we've actually had a guy that comes on our show, Stan Mello, that has actually done readings. And sure enough, he was right. We brought him to a place, and he nailed it without ever being there. So it was kind of cool.
There's a lot of crap out on TV. There's a lot of crap on the internet. I call the internet the largest septic tank that man has ever made. How do people...
Absolutely, and buyer beware, I guess.
Oh, that's it, buyer beware. Like I was just going to ask you, how can people differentiate between reality when it comes to the paranormal and the junk that's out there?
I think you have to trust go with your gut feeling. You know what? Because people go, well, do you believe in psychic stuff? Absolutely, when it comes to trust your gut, because your gut is never wrong usually. So if it doesn't feel right, Rob, and if it sounds too good to be true, you know what the answer probably is.
So let's see, tell us a little bit about your show where people can tune in to watch it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can check us out on Kojiko, TV Kojiko 10, or video on demand. And you can also visit our website, niagarasmosthaunted.com, where we update it. And we're going to be at a whole bunch of Comic-Cons. Next one, May 2-4 weekend in Toronto.
Excellent. I want to thank you so much for joining us, Peter. It's been a great pleasure. Your books are available online as well, I would imagine?
Absolutely, at Peter Sacco, petersacco.com. And actually, there's a couple free books on there, including the one on rage, which, we put it out there. We want to make a difference in the world and stop anger from ruling or ruining your life. Yeah,
people should take more responsibility. Just because you can't see the person, just because your anonymity is given to you through the internet, doesn't mean you can be rude, doesn't mean that you can be mean. People should be more responsible. And moms and dads, I think that it's a fact that you should teach your children this. And I think that this should also be taught in school, because more and more kids are using smartphones and handheld devices at much earlier ages than even 3-4 years ago.
Absolutely, Rob. You know what? Everybody out there listening deserves to have the best quality life that they can have and enjoy life, not endure it or exist. So make the most of your life, and you know what? You deserve to have the best in your life, and it all starts with you. Don't take crap from other people, but at the same time, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Peter, I want to thank you once again for joining us. Take care of yourself, and I look forward to having you back on the show in the near future. Thank you so much, Rob, and everybody listening. Thanks so much for listening to me. You guys are great. Thanks, Peter. Bye-bye now. Exonation, Dr. Peter Andrew Sacco. His website is www.petersacco.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news at 6.5 minutes past the top of the hour as we continue here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. Worldwide toll-free is 1-800-610-7035. My email address is xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV, and our website, where you can also listen to past shows, www.xzoneradiotv.com. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with the news. Don't go away.